What's going on, everybody? It's good to be with you today. Pastor Jason is with you today since Pastor Snow and Miss Mary have stepped away for a couple days to get a little R&R, and they'll be back with us this Sunday and this weekend for the beginning of 2021. And I was struck this morning, and I wanted to share something that struck me this morning, because it was my wife had to go to the dentist. And so I'm sitting there doing dishes, working on the house a little bit. My wife probably came back home and was like, no, I don't see anything done at the house. But all that aside, so I'm sitting there, I'm walking back and forth, getting stuff done, getting ready to get started on dishes. And my kids are roughhousing, because I really endorse roughhousing, and kids really are just getting to just wrestle all over the floor. So my 4-year-old and 3-year-old are wrestling. And then all of a sudden, my daughter, she will tell you in a heartbeat, I'm hungry. Daddy, 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 hungry, hungry. I need you to get me this. I need you to do this. Can you get me a snack or something? Always hungry. And I told her, I said, well, hey, baby, not yet. I've got to do this, and then I'll be able to come back and get you yet. And she just threw the biggest, not the biggest, she's thrown bigger, but a pretty sizable tantrum. My son can kind of take it a little bit better, but Kezia she threw a tantrum. And it was crazy because in that moment we have a picture in our hall, like a little hallway there, and it said, when you're in the hallways of life, God is still the God of the hallways. And as we're getting ready to transition over into 2021, and I know there's so many of you, and me to myself maybe a little bit, I think more of an excitement factor of what God is going to do in 2021. We're ready to transition, but what does that mean? Because a lot of us get stuck in the hallway, and if we're being totally honest, most of us don't really like what we do in the hallway, which is dead period or waiting. So I wanted to read from you today. Where God led me was Acts chapter 1, verses 3 and 4 today. And so and I'm going to read it out of a translation called the Passion Translation. So if mine's a little different, that's why. So verse 3, Acts chapter 1. After the sufferings of his cross, Jesus appeared alive many times to these same apostles over a 40-day period. Jesus proved to them with many convincing signs that he had been resurrected. During these encounters, he taught them the truths of God's kingdom of heaven, and shared and communed and had meals with them as well. Jesus instructed them, don't leave Jerusalem. Key point here. But wait here until you receive the gift I told you about, the gift the Father has promised. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And and a lot of us can relate to the fact that God wants to give us a gift. I think a lot of us would accept the fact that God has good things for us. But we forget about the waiting. And most of us don't like to wait. Especially if you're waiting on something to get better or something to change. And to tell you the truth, I'm convinced that the hardest form of waiting is when you're waiting on God. Because when God forces you to wait for things to get better, for things to improve, things to change, things to reverse, because how many of you, I can't tell you, have told me you don't want to go to the new normal, you want the old normal. And you're waiting on these things and nothing is happening. Yet over and 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 time in and time again, in the Bible we're told to what? To wait on the Lord. One of the things that I want to think about today is, what does it mean to be in the hallways of life? What does it mean to be in the hallway when God's called you to one side? And some of y'all are in that hallway right now. And when I say that, I want to define that. What do I mean when I say, what is God's hallway? When you're waiting in God's hallway, what that means is you are in a hurry for something to happen, but God isn't. That's God's hallway. See, some of us are in a hurry to have a child. Some of us are in a hurry to get a new job. Some of us are in a hurry to sell our house. Some of us are in a hurry to get out of COVID-19. Some of us are in a hurry to get out of quarantine if you have a child that tested positive. Some of us are in a hurry to get on to the next chapter of life. Some of us are in a hurry to get this project completed. Some of us are in a hurry to get home. But God isn't. I mean, how many of y'all have been in a hurry when God wasn't? And when we're in those moments, you know, I say that with a quote, you know God's going to come through. You know God's going to accomplish it, because most of us have memorized all things work out for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purposes. And some of y'all have even been praying really godly prayers along the way. But where's God? And you're frustrated and you're challenged. And you're in the waiting room. You are in the hallway. And we get so impatient. We want to hurry. We want to hurry God up. And we want it right now. And some of y'all are thinking of giving up. And some of y'all are getting discouraged. And so there's a couple things that I believe God does in the hallway. And I want to give you those as something to chew on before we step into 2021. Because one, God's standard of time is different than ours. How many times, like the disciples, do we want the gift? How many of us, we just left Christmas, right? How many times do we want the gift? And I'm convinced that so many times that we want the gift, but if we really got the gift when we wanted the gift, we'd forget about God and we make it about the gift, and we put the gift on the same level as God. We wouldn't forget about God, but we put this gift on the same level as God, and we make it about the gift that God gave us. See, God's standard of time is different than ours. It is in the waiting that God builds our character. And I believe that's when He builds our character the most. And see, He's working on you while you're working on your project. He's working on you while you're working on your goal. He's working on you while you're working on your calling. And He's so much, but I'm going to tell you this, He's so much more interested in you than that dream that you're trying to get. He's so much more interested in you than the calling that you think, than the vision, than the goal, than the accomplishment that you're trying to get. And see, you want to know how I know that? Because you don't take your accomplishments to heaven. But you do take your character with you. Many of us are just not ready yet. One of my favorite pieces of Scripture is Exodus chapter 23, it's starting in verse 20. And when God promises the Israelites, I'm going to take you to a place, a land flowing with milk and honey. I will always protect you. I will always prepare you. But I will not give it to you all at once. And He tells them why. Because you will be overtaken by the land. Not just the land, you will be overtaken by the gift. Because the land, the promised land, was the gift. How many times have we gotten a gift because we wanted it now? And we've made it about the gift and we weren't able to actually steward or handle the gift in a way that we were actually meant to steward and take care of the gift. God told the Israelites, I'm going to grow you up little by little. See, He wants you to grow. And when you're ready, it's going to happen. And a lot of times we think we're waiting on God. I don't think that's it whatsoever. I think God's waiting on you. I think He's testing your faith. But really, He's also growing you up. He wants to give you so much more than you're ready for. But you can't handle it yet. And the last point I want to make here, because it's the point that I was experiencing this morning with my children. And I heard another pastor preach on it. A delay is not a denial. There's a big difference between a no and a not yet. See, like my immature kids that I was dealing with this morning, they didn't know the difference. I didn't tell them no. I just told them not yet. And they pitched a hissy fit right there in front of me. At the right time, He's going to answer your prayer. At the right time, He's going to come through. And this is important right here, because in the hallway, you will fall prey to so many emotions. Worry. You're stressed out. You're irritable. You get what I like to call spiritual ADD. You get envious because why do they have a good job and I don't? Why did they have a child and I don't? Why did their project get to work out so well for them and they're making a lot of money doing it and I'm not? And then you get frustrated and you end up having a pity party. So what does He want you to do? Because guess what? We all go through the hallway in our own home countless times throughout the day. We're all going to go through the hall of life many times. We're all going to God's going to take us through the hallway more times than we can count. There's always a delay. And one of the things I'm here to tell you today, and I want to close on this, is that the delays are by design. The delays are by design. And you want to know how I know that? Because God told Noah that he was going to build an ark and build a boat. Because he was going to flood the world. He was going to flood the earth. Noah built a boat, but it didn't rain for 120 years. You know how I know it? God told Abraham, I'm going to turn you into a great nation, but didn't give him a child to have a great nation through until he was 99 years old. You know how I know it? Because God told a guy named Moses, I'm going to use your life and liberate your people and take them to the promised land. But we're going to go through the desert for 40 years first. God anointed King David to be king, and he poured oil over his head through the prophet Samuel and said, you're going to be the king of Israel. But he never got to actually experience what it meant to be king for another 40 years. Even Jesus of Nazareth had to wait 30 years in a carpentry shop before he ever performed a single miracle, opened a blind eye, preached in a synagogue, was baptized, and tempted. You're in good company if you're in the hallway of life. I promise you this, you're not forgotten. You're not unloved. You're just growing. So as we step into 2021, that's my challenge to you. If you're in the hallway, if you're waiting, and we all are with the COVID-19 pandemic to a certain extent, just know you're growing. Love y'all. Thank you for joining us today. I encourage you, you're taking that next step. So let's step into 2021 with excitement, boldness, and expectation with what he wants to do through our lives. Love y'all. Thank you.